hold on, at least for 1 year, that construction of the pipeline until the following issues are addressed. What do we do as a country, Honorable Mary Mujenyi?
Oh, thank you so much, Honorable Nganda, for moderating this talk. And I'm glad to be here, to be speaking to Ugandans through this radio station. It's a pleasure for me, of course, to be addressing issues of regional integration. And this pipeline is one of the projects of the East African community. So it is very pertinent and of concern to us, because the reason why the East African community partner states came together was mainly to improve the well-being of their citizens through increased production, trade, and any other opportunity that is available to the East Africans. And of course, the pipeline, as you can see, does not belong to Uganda. It also belongs to Tanzania. And under the common market, you will actually have East Africans employed from all the 7 partner states in this work of the pipeline. So it is of concern to the East African region. We would like to see any opportunity that is available to increase the production, the marketing, the value addition of produce of our regions, the tapping and harnessing the resources that God and nature has given us, and this happens to be one of them. Oil is a serious commodity, and we look at it as one of the resources that can improve the incomes of the region, and therefore anything that is going to affect the work of the pipeline will affect our citizens, and therefore we are concerned. One, as an East African legislator, I am a diplomat actually of the East African community, and so I tread carefully in terms of dealing with other regional bodies, and I would expect the same respect when it comes to dealing with issues of Africa's well-being and matters. To me, this is continuation of the domination of the West on the African continent, where they think that they should police the world while they are enhancing their own resources. It is incomparable how much is being done in terms of oil production, oil mining, oil processing in the Western world. Now, for the Western world to be concerned about a pipeline that is going to help the East African region, which is really low-income countries, and that they should have the say on what we do with our resources, to me is unfortunate. It should be us, the owners of the resources. We are concerned about the environment, of course. I see a point in what they are saying, if you read the reasons being given, but that is not enough. There is always a cost and benefit. If you weigh the cost to the environment, which has been very well studied, this pipeline has employed environmentalists, the studies have been done, the protection is ensured. So for you to say now at this point in time, when the countries have already invested this much.
You see, Honorable Mujenyi, Uganda is a signatory to protocols, including on climate. Yes. The one of Paris is cited in this resolution, but also Uganda is a member of the global village. You are part of the UN. You are being asked as a member of these organs that please, you committed yourself to do or not to do the following, but you are doing them. You are violating rights of your own citizens. You've closed 54 non-government organizations that operate in the oil zone. The EU, one of the funders of Uganda, sent a delegation to visit so they can find out by themselves what is going on in the zone. You stopped them. You've arrested a number of journalists and they are listing names. You are doing etc. So they make this resolution as a result of this process. I don't want to.
Are these journalists dealing with the pipeline, or this you are talking about politics now of the region? And I think we need to confine our discussion to the point and the question you have asked. So if we are talking about the East African pipeline, I would beg that we restrict ourselves for now to the East African pipeline.
We are talking about the resolution of the European Union Parliament.
Yes.
And that resolution touches a number of issues, including the pipeline. It also touches issues of human rights, issues of environment, issues of compensation. So we are going to discuss the resolution in totality. If you choose to focus on the pipeline, I will allow you, and then I will later be inviting.
I would like to discuss issues of the pipeline.
Yeah.
And I beg not to be diverted into the wider issues of politics or human rights.
Yeah, please go
because
ahead.
that will need its own day.
Yeah.
So for now, my focus is on, indeed, Uganda is signatory to these climate change, environmental protection protocols. We are aware. But honestly, in terms even of our destruction of the environment, the emissions that come from Uganda to the environment, the destruction that Uganda or Tanzania are doing to the environment, and you put it on the scale and weigh the issue of the need to address the poverty of the people. For how long can East Africans continue to receive donor funding, for example? That's an area of concern to me. Donor funding from the European Union, donor funding from the United States of America. Unless we are able to use our own resources and harness them, but of course with the protection of the environment, measures have to be taken to protect the environment. And I believe that this has been done. Please look properly on the papers and see the studies that have been done on the pipeline before it was before the construction started. All these measures have been taken into consideration. And also, you cannot tell me that East Africans with very little factories, for example, that emit dangerous gases and so on, including the airlines, the fleet of airlines. There are countries you go to and you look at the sky and you see how many airplanes are there and the gas that is coming out of these airplanes, and you shudder. So how can you tell me that this pipeline, which is well protected, which is meant to provide cheap means of transporting our oil for processing and trade, that it is going to be the killer? No, I think that to me it is a no, and we're going to fight it. As a regional legislator, I will definitely speak for the pipeline to be in place.
Thank you, Oster,
we cannot continue to be
We had a question from a fellow discussant.
Yes.
And it was quite tricky. I'm glad you have come. So provide the enabling environment.
Yes. Poverty kills the environment more than the pipeline, by any standards.
I listened in as I was coming in.
Did you hear the discussant question?
I could see, yes, the moderator was focusing on something else. Honorable Mjenyi was also focusing on something else. And she was saying, I will not dig into the politics.
Yeah, no.
How can she not dig into the politics?
So we had two moderators, actually.
Yes. And
thank you.
You would argue that it is about the politics.
Yeah, I know.
But so over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, my honourable. And
I have peacefully handed over.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Let me first say that apologies for my poor punctuality. There is a big accident on the northern bypass. One truck has actually, one is stuck in the road, the other one has driven over. I don't even know how they managed to do that. And all, you know, us in Uganda, we stop too much.
You know, so you can't know how they managed to do it.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Oscar, For me, I want to appreciate that these discussions are coming now. And for me, it raises three things. One is that, yes, the EU has some issues. There are pertinent issues that all of us recognize that they do matter. The other aspect that I want to focus on is what are the implications of the issues they are raising and why now? And of course, I will have some facts to really, bring us to speed. Why are we hearing these things now? Now, for me, I look at the issues raised, of course, human rights issues. Human rights issues are real issues, environmental issues, and all these kind of things that were raised. But as a member of parliament, I also know that in my own parliament of Uganda, there are always motions that are brought on the floor, but its implications are actually dependent on the government, and in this case, are dependent on the member states of the EU. And that takes me to the facts. Who are these member states and who are these EU people who are actually adopting this, and where is it coming from? I would refer you, Oscar, to a study that was done, this Global Energy Monitor study. And they are telling us that there are 2,381 operational oil, gas, and energy pipelines across 162 countries. Okay? And that tells you really that the pipeline, the East African pipeline is not a new thing. Pipelines have been around. In fact, the longest pipeline in this world, it is in Europe, running around from Russia, Belarus, all these areas to Ukraine and all that kind of, the longest in the world. And here you are, these are the member states of these people, of these, the movers of this motion. And then EU alone has these, emissions? About 20% of the world emissions actually come from the EU. And then there is this study of the EU Green Paper. I think you will get the details, and where they're really talking about sustainability and all that. And they are telling you that actually the best way of transporting oil and gas, those crude things, is through pipeline, because it's hidden, okay? And so it helps to address all these other the tracks. This particular EU Green Paper study was discouraging transporting this crude oil by the pipes. And then you have another study by the American Petroleum Institute, which was formed 1919, actually. It's quite a long time. And it's telling you that the pipeline are safe, efficient, and when they are unseen, but again, emphasizing on the other EU Green Paper study. So that now brings me to the issue of why now? And what do we do with the biggest? By the way, our pipeline, I just looked at it, it just contributes, I think it is going to be, is it 0.1% length of the overall global pipeline. Now you leave 99.99 something pipelines who are already hidden on ground, and then you run for the 0.1. Not to say that the issues they're raising. So Oscar, I would like that when we are discussing this issue, we need to separate the issues of human rights and all those issues from the issue of pipeline. My mother always tells me that do not point at somebody, because you point with one finger, but all the four will be on you. From the studies, these studies that I've read, I think they have the four fingers on them. But as a country and as a region, they've raised issues that we need to pay attention to. And for me, the issues they've raised here are really more of operational issues, of making sure that, yes, when you're doing this, there should be A, B, C, D, and E. So I think my view is that our engagement should be around that. But really for EU,
Let me before you escape from the microphone, Honorable Agnes, Team Doctor. I've realized now the debate depends on which political party the Ugandan MP is in.
I don't think so.
So in terms of the oil,
it shouldn't be.
Yes.
And even what I'm saying now, I'm not saying because of my political.
Let me focus.
For me, I've just read the papers.
Let me focus.
The research.
Let me focus because you're saying I'll separate this and just discuss this. So in terms of oil and the pipeline, what they've raised about the pipeline is that it is going to cause trouble with the waterways and natural whatever. And that one, the Ministry of Energy can respond and has responded. So in matters of oil, that one, okay. But if the European Union is telling you, for us, we are not even telling you Uganda, we are telling our person, Total. So will you ignore that one? They have not said Uganda do this. They have said Total.
But Oscar, Total has been around. And this oil thing is not today. And that is why for me I'm wondering, in what spirit is emotion coming in at this time when they've already signed this? Is it the final investment? Final investment decision has been signed. There's been a lot of studies together with Total. There's a lot of environmental impact assessment. In fact, you are not even allowed to sign that final investment decision until you fulfill all the required standards. Besides that, we have a law, we have an environmental act. I would be very happy if somebody was quoting like our law that yes, in this, when you do this, you would have breached this, and then that we go to address it. I have also seen issues of compensation and all these kind of things. I think it is good that you are raising that. They're actually raising it with Total. I think as a country, we needed actually to even engage Total that, hey, your people are saying this. You mean all these things you've signed before did not conform to this, those kind of things. But for me, I think as a country, we need to appreciate who we are and what we have and the rights that we have as a sovereign country.
Namfi.
Yes, Oscar.
Is it the politics or the oil?
It is the politics, and it shouldn't be. I think it's sad that we've come to a point where now this whole discussion is about...
Sad for who?
Sad for our country. It is a sad day when we politicize something that benefits us all, because then people draw lines between those who are opposing it for the sake of opposing it because they're on the opposition, and then those who are for it and they're just for it because they're in government, and government is the one which is undertaking this particular venture. Because at the end of the day, our debate should be what is best for the country, what is best for Uganda. Because at the end of the day, even when government leaves power, which it will at some point, you, the opposition, will have a country to run, and you don't want that country to be impoverished because you put in place policies, or you helped put in place policies that jeopardized any chance of utilizing the natural resources that we have. And the good doctor here points out that this is not the first pipeline in the world. And I will not at all agree with the EU to tell an impoverished third world country to make concessions, which they are not making. They have the pipelines. They're building pipelines. They're using oil. They're mining oil. And yet they come to an impoverished third world country to tell us to make sacrifices for the environment. That is unfair in the extreme. And for us to then politicize the whole discussion,
but Nafi,
it becomes
the authority, they have responded. The Ministry of Energy has responded to
They have.
They've said the route does not affect, apart from one reserve, which will be covered up. So that's a non-issue. It's like when they raise issues, that one you respond to.
You respond to it and then you remove it. And
the other one SEMUJJU wanted to talk about seem to be the bigger issues.
Which one? The compensation?
No.
Human rights?
Yes.
How even? What is a worse human right violation than poverty?
And what human rights is more than Russia coming to Ukraine to come and kill people there?
Exactly.
What human rights are we talking
Let's look
about?
at the human rights record in Saudi Arabia, who they hobnob with every day.
the same Namfuka?
I don't
No, at the end of no. Let's be objective, because this is something that means a lot to this country.
Yes, thank you.
Is it Namfuka? Where are the business?
No, I am saying let's not use excuses to hold ourselves in poverty.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, let's get out of poverty, because for me, poverty and bad governance are our key problems. Once we've solved those, then we can go into the aesthetics of human rights and the other things. Otherwise, we get a problem that should be a global problem, and we localize it, and then we create a problem for ourselves, and then we lock ourselves in poverty because yes, we were following human rights.
Next to Mary, and they're all nodding in approval too.
Yes.
You know, this is how they usually want you to be like.
No, I will not support a situation that jeopardizes our development at the cost of rhetoric and all these foreign attacks, which are unwarranted, from countries who have all these violations. You know, it reminds me of the time when Leonardo DiCaprio flew into Europe to get an award for his work with the environment on a private jet.
There you go.
The irony was...
Mary Mujenyi, you wanted to add on something?
Yeah, I just want to thank the lady. Thank you so much.
It is very rare to be thanked by anyone from NRM.
Ugandans from all shades. Yes, I'm from NRM. It's not a good party. And I believe you are from Loop, because I can see the red. Yes, but I must say I appreciate your point. It is very important that leaders who are speaking on behalf of the people are speaking with objectivity. To me, the oil pipeline is a matter of livelihoods of our people. It does not matter which shade of opinion or political party you come from. This is about the livelihood of our people. And indeed, as she rightly said, in future, another party will be in place, and this oil will be of importance.
Namfi regions where the oil pipeline will pass and so on, and really those concerns you can put them off. Next week we shall have Unok here, and they'll even explain that further.
Oscar to a TV show about this topic. I am sorry, I don't think the ladies are discussing the resolution of EU Parliament.
They are passionately patriotic.
No, because the resolution does not tell Uganda that to stop oil production. It is only raising issues and asking the government of Uganda to address them.
And so it should.
It is also asking Total that please can you hold for 1 year as Uganda is addressing these issues. I don't see any problem. In fact, for me, I don't know what has motivated the quarreling, because
they're waiting for the
Abudu knows.
Politicizing things.
We spent 2 days in Parliament. You're not the ones who have delayed the deadlines that you say to yourselves. Have you met any? You remember this oil was supposed to have come. This oil was supposed to have come. Was it 2018? Was supposed to 2012, 2013, 2018, 2020. Now it is 2030. I am not sure that it is EU that has delayed your development, that they are the ones who are delaying all this. You are delaying yourself because of lack of resources. I have started a company when you don't have capital. You know what it means? That every day you are looking for the next investor. And some of the investors, they are the ones that you are now lambasting. So, Oscar, for me, these are the issues. EU is saying, please be transparent. Allow civil society that are doing some work in the oil zone to do civil society work. Allow journalists to access the area and do the stories. They have names of journalists who have been arrested, journalists who have been beaten, whose houses have been broken in. The NGOs, 54 of them that have been closed. So they raise issues of human rights and are asking Uganda, as a signatory to international convention, that please can you do the following as a member of UN, can you do the following as a member of the Paris Protocol. They are also raising issues of environment. When we had a debate on oil for 2 days in Parliament, the emotions that were in Parliament that day were as a result not of an European Union Parliament resolution, but failure of all the other African countries producing oil countries. Angola has failed. Nigeria has failed. So and so has failed, not because of European Union.
No politicization.
So what do we do to avoid mistakes that other African countries have made? And the Abdus who are leading the debate demanded for the laws, demanded for, I reminded people what happened when we are discussing whether it clause 80 or 40. The proposal of Parliament was that allow the technical arm of the state, the Uganda Oil Company, to be the one transacting deals. The president said no, he will be the one to do so through a minister. Clause 9. And I don't want to go into the history surrounding that because eventually it became too controversial, especially following the death of the Honorable Newand. So these issues, we have raised them as a country, we have raised them as members of Parliament. Maybe the anger is that now they are being raised by a foreigner. That's why they are being rebelled, chauvinistic, imperialistic, colonialism. But if you go and extract the 2-day debate on the oil in Parliament, you will find that the very issues that these MPs in Europe are raising are the very issues that Parliament raised. And then as a country, you do a checklist. You say, okay, Parliament raised this, EU is raising it, this is how we have addressed the same point that you make, Oscar. If the pipeline, go to and visit Nigeria, the impact of that pipeline to the Niger Delta, and the demonstration and the quarreling, and the insecurity against the oil pipeline itself. Because we want to learn from Nigeria, that's why you have another, I don't want to say an interested party, but at least someone who is not in Uganda saying, please do the following. And all the spokesperson of government are abusing them. I don't know why, because in Parliament, at the beginning of this whole process of oil production, the president treated it as if it was personal. One time he declared himself an oil sheikh. He said, I am also now an oil sheikh. I need to go and attend these meetings of oil sheikhs. He made it look like this was a personal project. I have heard from some quarters that he said part of the reason he doesn't want to go is because people will play with his oil. So he needs to first sell his oil, and when he's exhausted now he can go. I don't know what will exhaust first. So therefore for me, I think the issues are legitimate. Uganda, instead of quarreling, need to address these issues one by one to the satisfaction of Ugandans first, to the people who live in the oil zone, to where the pipeline will pass, and then to the rest of the country and to the partners. If you look at our budget of now, it is 48 trillion shilling. Last year it was 44. These people that you are abusing are funding nearly half of your budget. We've started running to China. You can stop them and then starve.
Yeah, and produce our oil.
Hold on. Just conclude the saying.
As a result of these bad manners of quarreling with people who are helping you, we now get most of our funding from China, giving us loans at a commercial rate. In this budget, we have 15 trillion shilling, which is debt servicing. Interest is 7 trillion. You can't fund your budget. People are helping you to feed your family. You are now abusing them, that they are telling you, please, instead of having a breakfast, lunch, and supper, please have 2 meals a day. Say, please, this is my family. Don't tell me anything. If they are still feeding you, and I don't understand African countries. Once these Europeans want to close your country, they will close it. I have been to Sudan. Sudan was speaking the same way you speak. What did they do? Sanctions. And Sudan, which was better than Belgium at the time of independence, collapsed as a state. So please, you can risk your part as NRM. We are asking you, do not risk the country by being arrogant. Address the issues one by one. Where they are unfair, we will join you and say here they are unfair. But just pretend as if these issues don't exist.
Thank you, Honorable SEMUJJU. Honorable SEMUJJU, have some coffee from Star Cafe. Thank you, Starkath. Abdu, let's start with Abdu, then on to Ivan Rugamba. Most welcome to Gang, Abdu. Let's start with the issues, because now SEMUJJU has also ended up confusing the whole thing as well.
I think he has.
Namfi style, yes.
Yeah.
So
with much due respect,
yes,
I think Honorable
he has
gone off.
Not very far off, but he has confused things.
Yeah.
So Abdu, the issues. My argument with SEMUJJU here is that in terms of the oil, we can present the answers, and can do that and whatever. But the other side of the politics, is it linked with this pipeline? Is the politics linked with Total? Is the message from European Union to Total, and should we be concerned about it?
Of course we should be. There's no doubt about that. And the reason is we are sort of suffering from what in the oil and gas industry we call the Dutch disease. We've forgotten all the other sectors of our economy, and all our hope is on oil and gas. And you can even hear it around the table here. Our oil, very hope of us. And the government has made these mistakes. We have overcommitted ourselves in contractual obligations, in loans, big infrastructure projects, and so on, because we're expecting revenue from this oil. Then these sort of things come. A decision like this will have maybe a project delay for another 12 months or whatever it is, litigation. It could end up with looking for alternative source of funding and so on. So it is utter confusion. And if you have a country where, if you look at our budget today, take for example, and Doctor knows this, we've been having a lot of chat about it. Our GDP debt ratio is now 51%, far above what is the sound levels, all those which are recommended. So when you have a problem like this, I mean you get the shock, and then we have this clash of arrogance of both sides of us. This is our oil and blah blah, and then the Europeans we can arms twist you and so on. So this, and at the end of the day, they say when elephants fight, the grass suffers. We've got an ordinary man there who is seeking, he needs the services and so on, and then the big pharaohs in government, us, are quarreling with the big Europeans and shouting obscenities at each other. It doesn't help. Certainly doesn't help. What do we have to do? We separated the issues. One, there are the professional issues being raised, which, as you rightly say, can be answered. For example, all issues about environment, all those ones, it can be answered. There is no project like this which does not cause socioeconomic impacts. Even a road, you have project affected persons. And that's why the law provides for the national for the socioeconomic impact assessments by NEMA. And has NEMA done a great job? In my view, they have done, because nobody is raising a scientific argument about those issues. None. Yeah. So, and that we can engage professionally. And that, there's no reason why we should even be shouting at us. So you raise this, you have all, whether geologists, environmentalists, and so on, they can sit and say, okay, what is your data? What is our data? This sort of thing arguments has been fact, Abdu, raising now.
In fact, they have already responded to those things. They've said we've done it diligently. Yes. Tanzania has even done extra in doing that.
We have that. And that is really, to me, is not an issue. It is somebody trying to use it. But the real issue is different. And that's what we should be preoccupied with. What is the real issue? Is it really even the human rights? No. You think the European Union is so much convinced about some of these issues of a journalist and so on? Maybe not. And I think some of us should do, because you see, we are not like the people on the streets. If we need to provide the public with a little bit of guided debate or conversation. One, we've put ourselves in some environmental contradictions, and we are now reaping some of these. What is our issue, for example, our position on Ukraine? Exactly. You see people running in here, the rock rover is here and so on, and then some of the outbursts we have, eventually, they affect us. Then we also have another problem of ourselves, Ugandans. Those of us who run all over the European cities and we are saying, no, this is the worst which has ever happened anywhere in the world. This is happening and so on. So these are the real issues. We shouldn't even just lie to ourselves that it's about environment and so on. There is no project of that magnitude, including in Europe, which does not have impact. But what NEMA says is you have to weigh, does the advantage over rising out above the disadvantages? That's what we have to do, and all projects do. Total has already invested a lot of money. You know, it's not about, this one is, we call it SPV. It is a special purpose vehicle, the pipeline and so on. It's purely a delivery oil infrastructure. Yeah. But the business itself is the oil itself. It's the oil itself. Now, you cannot have Total benefit from that investment except when it sorts out this delivery infrastructure. You can't. So Total itself, by the way, could actually be more interested in this conversation more than even Uganda. Right. Because they have already invested a lot of money. You know, could it be close to almost $2 billion so far?
10 billion.
No, already. No. The one which has already been invested here. Okay. Yeah. So I think the conversation should be different from what we are having. These issues on the table are not the real issues. And that's why I think our ambassadors should be trying to do a better job. Our ambassadors, I think our Minister of Foreign Affairs should start to do a better job. I think Mary
Mujenyi is an ambassador as well.
No, she's been, and she has been. When I left Pan-African Parliament, she's one of them who succeeded me, and even she rose to become vice president. And that is an ambassador job we are doing, you remember. So she's very good at that. But even the issues which are raised, don't dismiss them, especially issues of human rights. That one, we should always do a self-introspection and say, what do we do with this sort of... Because you see, there is always a cry about it. And we can't say, yes, why are they complaining about human rights? Because for us, they're also committing, abuse. No, you don't do that. You don't do that. For us, it is to our own advantage. To our own advantage. And we don't allow opportunists who have other reason to take advantage because of our performance.
Yes.
We shouldn't allow that. So if there are issues which are being legitimately raised, we can address them. And of course, for us, we can do. I would really request those guys who are doing the diplomatic job and so on, their language should be different. It should not be the quarreling ones, the way they can quarrel. My brother Fono is not here. That is his job. We can quarrel and so on. But the other people who should be able to explain some of these things professionally, they can explain it, really realistically with the figures, and this will not be an issue.
Okay, let's go to Ivan. Let's finish. Most welcome to Gang. Ivan, you've been listening patiently, writing many notes on your phone. For once, you were smiling at Namfi's responses and liking them. But Abdi is telling you that this is not going to be a patriotic shouting out that will resolve the issue. The issue is Total might be stuck because their parliament has said they wait for 1 year and let the government of Uganda sort out these things. So what's the next step?
Thank you very much, Oscar. I think that what we are debating, I want to think that the diplomatic circles who are charged with the responsibility of using diplomatic channels to respond to issues raised by the EU are doing that. But you can understand why Ugandans are very agitated or animated by this issue, because the amount of money that is going, the amount of foreign direct investment that is coming into the economy as a result of this oil resource is very, very big and has a very huge potential to transform communities both in the Albertine region but also in the country. Right now, Uganda is a net oil importer. Once the oil starts flowing and we have the refining in place in the long term, Uganda will be a net oil exporter. That means that's very significant for the economy, for Ugandans, and so you can understand this public debate that is happening as a result of this resolution. By the way, even during the oil debate that was happening in Parliament at the time, where Parliament was very animated for 2 days debating oil resource, this debate happened. So it is not true that the debate is only happening because it has been raised by the European Union. These debates are happening on social media right now. For the past 2 or 3 months, there has been a series of conversations on Twitter Spaces and all by those who are debating, who want to stop the project, stop EACOP, versus those who are advocating for the continuation of the project. So this conversation has been happening. But let's look at what issues the European Parliament raising. First of all, it is saying that nearly 100,000 people are at the risk of displacement. Is this fact true? It is not. Only 3,648 people in Uganda will be affected by EACOP, by the crude oil pipeline, and not all of these will be displaced. Only 4% of the 3,648 people will be displaced.
But even if it were true, what is important is somebody who is displaced is resettled.
Yes, this is what I am
coming at. Like, because you cannot have a project like that and you don't displace people.
This is what
how do you resettle them?
This is what I am coming at, Abdu. So of the 3,648 people, only 4% will have their houses, will be displaced physically, their houses, and for these 210 housing units are being constructed currently to relocate these people. Of the 3,648, 56% have so far been compensated, have been paid, and majority of these, by the way, are only economically affected. That means that because many of these are passing through the category of the farming communities, it means that 6 months after the pipeline has been put into the ground, people who are doing farming, goats or cows, can continue actually, by the way, to utilize their land. So they are not even being moved. They will continue to utilize their land, and yet they will still be compensated. There will be those who houses are being built, those who are not being affected or their houses being affected will continue to use their land 6 months after putting the pipelines in the project. That is one of the issues. The other thing, they are saying that Total should take a year to devise an alternative route to better safeguard the environment and reduce carbon emissions and all of this. Uganda or even Africa is not even amongst, none of the African countries is even amongst the top 50 polluters, in global. Yes, none of them is amongst the top 50 emitters of carbon into the environment. But Uganda has even taken extra care to be able, only NEMA clarified, issued a statement, only 0.05% of the Maxon Falls National Park is going to be affected by this project. And even then, there have been clear safeguards that have been put in place to be able to regulate and limit as much impact on the national park as much as possible. So very few of the inner issues that the European Union are raising have not been undertaken by the Ugandan government. The reason you're having this agitated public debate, Oscar, is because of the hypocrisy happening right now. Right now, because of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, European countries are going back onto the books to start using coal. To just start using the same resources they are telling Uganda and African countries not to use. So they are going back to use coal because Russia is using gas and its petroleum resources as a weapon against the West. They are going back to the drawing board, the United States, to use the same resources. And Ugandans are saying, what is the essence of this hypocrisy? How can you not smell imperialism or neo-colonialism when you have these double standards? Of course, Ugandans have legitimate grievances against this. It is not
total imperialism.
No. Total. This is a business. This is a business undertaking. EACOP is being, and by the way, Uganda. And there has been, Oscar. There is another issue that has been conflated here: the question of the sharing, of the ownership of the project, the issue of the ownership of the project. the EACOP, which is the pipeline, is a transit route, which is on 60% by Total. It is transport infrastructure. 70% of the oil, which is the critical resource at the center, 70% of the resource is owned by Uganda. This one is only the transport infrastructure. It is like how you use trucks. It is how you use trucks that transport oil from Mombasa to Uganda. All these oil companies do not own these trucks, by the way. So this is transport infrastructure. By and large, Uganda has signed the best production sharing agreement, by the way, on the continent. And part of the reason SEMUJJU was pointing at the delay was to make sure that we have the best production sharing agreements. That the Ugandan, you can contest with the alternative facts.
Ivan. Crispy Kaheru, because even you've given good reason until you started hitting up about their patriotism. But Crispy Kaheru has told you, interestingly, the EU resolution contains elements. Honorable SEMUJJU, listen. The resolution contains elements that have already been overtaken by time.
Yes.
The CSO activities and media allegedly incarcerated are not incarcerated anymore. Months back, we, the Uganda Human Rights Commission, superintended over mediation between CSOs and the security agencies in the Albertine. I can confirm there are regular constructive meetings between stakeholders. Then he says the situation is not the same. For the PAPs, people affected by project affected persons, they are already constructing their homes. This is happening as we speak. Yes. So
what you are not saying is tell the public that this is not Kaheru of civil society.
But now you SEMUJJU, what you're saying is immaterial to the conversation.
No, but Ivan, but it is Crispy Kaheru of civil.
Okay, yes. we can define Crisp. Is Mr. Kaheru of the Uganda Human Rights Commission.
Yes.
Human Rights Commission.
So let me conclude
the sentence. But
the ban is not human rights.
Yes.
Activist.
Ivan.
Yes.
The ladies and gentlemen, Ivan, you need Namfi, hold on. We need to respond the way Katuntu said. Have like the way Crispy has responded. Don't get too excited, Ivan. Now,
okay.
Conclude.
The final point, Oscar, I wanted to make is that as of June this year, the projects, both the EACOP, the Kingfisher, the Tilenga, but there are three layers to this investment. There is the Kingfisher, there is the Tilenga, then there is the EACOP, are employing 5,624 people. Of these, 5,300 are Ugandans right now, and 2,100 are from the Albertine grabbing right now as we speak. So also my point is that we should not debate this issue as if there are not people at the center of this, that there are no people who have a stake in this project. If we did a referendum or we did a poll in the affected areas in the Albertine Graben or in the areas and asked, do Ugandans want this project to continue or not, you will be shocked by the overwhelming support of this project. So who should count? Is it the people who are actually affected by this project, or people who are sitting to the other side? You can address your issues of human rights through the financial channels that continuously being affected.
Ivan, we're going to stop for a break, and after the break, we'll have comments around the table on this and then close out. But I should tell you, even the EACOP makeup didn't talk about it. These are things we can ask at the ministry and the oil department. They'll tell you straight away. The reason it is owned by France 62% and owned in the UK is because most litigation ends up in the UK. And this, as you were saying, is a vehicle to take the oil. So
the tax for tax purposes, the EACOP and the entire project will be paying tax. It has tax residency in Uganda. It is not in the UK.
And
so taxes will be coming to Uganda.
Who doesn't know that? That the success of this project, the entire is for the entire country. Who doesn't know that?
Yes.
We stop for a break.
It's an issue.
3 Capital FM.
Welcome back from the break. It has been a very loud break. And you can still hear the overtones from the break. So what we shall do, we'll have ladies. Ivan, just tap Namfi on the shoulder there, that the program has started. So, Honorable Dr. Agnes Atim.
Yes.
Conclusions on this topic. What Abdul Katuntu is saying, that especially you people in power, you are not communicating to the problem, that you are generating noise outside the problem. When can you communicate to the problem so that this thing goes away? You cannot shout it. It's the way I keep telling opposition people that whenever they shout a lot, I tell SEMUJJU it's a different conversation we have. Shouting is not going to take away Museveni. But Namfi joined in the shouting as well. But,
Thank you. Thank you, Oscar. I think the issues raised here, like you've just read that message, the issue of human rights, the issue of all this. For environmental issues, you've rightly said that government has responded.
Complete.
For human rights, we have all the mechanisms in place. You have the Human Rights Commission. We have the courts. If your right is violated, you have all the mechanisms in place for you to address your issues. Must you run to EU for EU to shout over the country? I think for once as Ugandans, let's look at this as one of those things as Africans, we have deliberately decided to be whipped and be pushed around here and there. This is not any different from the Berlin Conference, which just sat in a room and they decided, oh, for you take the other one, for you take the other one. It is exactly this. And as Africans...
You've raised an important thing there. Who ran to the EU? Say, Bobby Wine ran to the EU.
I don't know.
I'm telling you. That if Bobby Wine ran to the EU, so from going forward, are you saying he should now just go to police and they will listen to him?
But that is who we are. As a country, we have our
Maybe
mechanism.
Agnes, you've forgotten who we are.
No. We are Ugandans, and we have to make our country. There's no way if your father cannot give you tea and all that, you start shouting at the neighbors. You think the neighbors really don't have issues? You think the neighbors will come and give you better food than your father can do? I think let this
So
issue.
people in Bobby Wine, these Namfis and all.
I don't want to talk about Bobby Wine or whatever.
But I'm telling you who they are. They are the ones.
Recognize
that you are going to listen to them going forward.
This ECOP issue is a national issue. It is an issue that is not political. It is non-partisan. It is anything. And for me, what annoys me the most, I'm not an historian, but when I sit back and watch how we allow somebody, because they're in another continent, because their color is white, to assume that in our brain we cannot do anything and we cannot decide. I am telling you, Honorable SEMUJJU has just said that we are beggars.
In your brain you can't.
For me, as me.
You have said them study.
Including Agnes.
Yes, I did study in the UK, yes. But I'm...
Now you're coming next. You're coming next to my...
No, but what I want to conclude by saying that for one, we have been going to the table empty-handed, and we go when we are very vulnerable. But this is an opportunity that God has given us as Ugandans, that we have the oil. And so when Total, when EU and whoever is talking, for once, we have something on the table to engage.
Okay.
So the issue of vulnerability and the issue of saying that we are beggars, and then even when you're begging, somebody should again come and ramp on you and tell you this is right, this is wrong, and this...
So, yes. Agnes, if you had an opportunity, what would you be telling the President of the European Union?
I would tell the President of the European Union that, one, Uganda is a sovereign state.
Right.
With its leader and its institutions that address human rights issues, that address environmental issues, and Ugandans are working with the rest of the world, that they also know that when you are having a pipeline, there are conditions that you have to follow. Okay. So you shouldn't really assume that we are all dumb and we don't know what we're doing.
Thank you, Agnes. Namfi, concluding remarks.
Agnes, with all due respect, when you act dumb most of the time, they will conclude that you're dumb.
Yeah.
Several times, we, the third world countries, surrender our sovereignty when it suits us to take packs from these countries. And that is why you see they have the audacity. I mean, we haven't sat in parliament and passed resolutions about Ukraine and Russia. Even when we should, sometimes we don't, because they haven't put themselves in these positions where they surrender their sovereignty. It's a dangerous thing that we do, the third world country. Even now, every day we wake up to surrender our sovereignty to China. We are selling ourselves to China. 15, 20 years from now, we will start asking why China is giving us orders. And yet we stood there and surrendered our sovereignty. So we have to be careful, especially you government people, when you make all this noise and say, how dare they? They dare. You know why they dare? Because at some point you surrender your sovereignty and you call them in to come and rescue you from certain situations when it suits you. Now back to the EU. It's rich coming from the EU telling us what to do when for 37 years we've suffered bad governance, bad elections, and even when they have said the elections are not fair, they don't do anything about it. So it's rich when we have an opportunity to get ourselves out of poverty, to get a certain level of independence, because let me tell you, as long as you are impoverished, you will never be independent, truly independent. You will cry neocolonialism, you will cry every sort of tears, but at the end of the day, a poor person will never enjoy certain level of independence. So the key thing, and I tell the opposition, yes, we may have issues, but these are issues we can deal with. The human right issue, the key issue, is about resettlement. We have several ways we can address this. We don't need a foreign parliament to tell us this. But for us to sit down and upload them closing this pipeline for a year, suspending it so that we can do these things, I think it's a boomerang that is going to come and bite us. Because at the end of the day, once we are still poor and vulnerable, and the population with the opposition are appealing to change their leadership is vulnerable and impoverished, we're not going to get anywhere with changing this leadership. However, if we start doing the oil thing, and then we get out of a certain level of abject poverty, then we can talk to people who understand the importance of proper governance and get out of abject poverty. So for me, it is, we shoot ourselves in the foot when we upload the EU, for stopping this oil pipeline for a year just to clean up certain areas which they have already started cleaning up. So I think we need to think more and think more and be less reactionary when it comes to things like this. Okay. That is all that I'm asking of our leaders.
Thank you. Let's go to Ivan Rugamba. Yes, in conclusion.
Yes, also in conclusion, I agree with your suggestion and Abdu's that the relevant diplomatic channels should do the job of explaining any of these issues that are raised by the European Parliament through the diplomatic channels. But in the meantime, it's very important. By the way, this is also having the unintended consequence of actually having Ugandans, those who were uninterested or who did not who had the lackluster interest in the oil sector, to actually understand the issues even more. Right now, this discussion we now know the ownership of the pipeline. We know the stakes. We know how much stake Uganda will have in regard to its oil. We know what has been done. There is now even opportunities for any people who have not been compensated, maybe to come forth and to come forward. All these issues are being handled, but at the European Parliament and then the European countries must understand that you cannot hide under the veneer of human rights to try to dictate what the economic choices of a given country. For this, there is one of the resolution is that one of the points is that there is growing concern over China and Russia's growing influence in Uganda. But look, this is a business matter. Part of the reason there has been delay of this project is because we've been attracting bids for companies coming to invest here. This was an open business decision. So if the Chinese and Russian companies are agreeing to come and invest here, and European companies are not, let them do so. You cannot say we should dictate who we should be friends with and who we shouldn't. That is the imperialism that we are talking about, Oscar.
Honorable Mary Mujenyi, you're the ambassador.
Oscar, on issues of livelihoods of my people, it becomes very difficult to be an ambassador that is neutral. The issues of the poverty of our people are very pertinent to us as leaders. And I actually want to assert that Ugandans should be able to choose where they should come together and where they can disagree. On issues of oil, and I want to disagree with Honorable Nganda right now, and I know he's coming next after me, so I'm taking a risk. But the idea, thank you so much, Honorable Nganda. I'm delighted.
In the studio, she has 2 votes.
Thank you so much.
In the studio, she has 2 votes.
I can guarantee mine.
Yeah, thank you so much.
3 votes.
Mine is guaranteed.
Thank you. Wow.
For Namfi, you're not a voter.
I'm glad I came.
Namfi, you're not a voter in that.
So I want to call on Ugandans that we must be able to select where we can disagree and also choose where we should come together and fight and lobby and stand together as Ugandans. In my case, even as East Africans, because I would speak for East Africa. Wait and see. The East African Legislative Assembly is going to respond on the floor of our parliament to this, to what the European Union is doing to us. I am glad, and I have learned even more from Ivan here about the responses, the statistics that are there, and I would like you to share with me so that I can be able to produce these statistics and be on record, so that East Africa is on record for having done most of the areas that the European Union is raising now. Remember the issue we are discussing. Why now? And let's not be diverted. Let Ugandans know that this is about our livelihood, the livelihood of our people. We are not just talking about oil. I mean, I disagree. When it comes to coffee, we are there. When it comes to our beans, we should be there. When it comes to our whatever resource we have, we must be there. And this continent is endowed, and we must fight for it. I therefore want to end by saying, and really appealing to the European Union and all the powerful countries of the West, stop bullying Africans. Africans
begging too much.
Exactly. And why are we begging? Why are we begging? Because we are kept in this vicious cycle of do this, we have allowed you to do this, don't touch here, don't go here. And also Ugandans, don't go to the European Union to lobby where it is not necessary. Be smart. I think we as leaders, we need to be smarter than we have been. I thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you. Honorable SEMUJJU, conclusion. Conclusion, Honorable SEMUJJU.
When Abacha died, Nigeria discovered that he had $9 billion in Switzerland. The money was stuck there until they reached an agreement with the family to share it.
With the government.
This excitement, the moment there is no transparent, you can get oil, you can get you can get the money, and
what is not transparent?
Everything.
Continue.
So the European Union and their parliament, as I said earlier, have a reason to point out issues that are not going on well in Uganda as our main funders. The day that stops, you can size up with them the way Russia is sizing with them. You are still vulnerable. I was in Khartoum. They just switched them off the international financial systems. They started carrying money in sacks, and the economy collapsed. So to remind them of their sovereignty when they are pointing issues at you, and then keep quiet about your sovereignty when you are begging money for roads and health sector and this and that. We should be doing this. Maybe that's the point Namfuka was making. So you go to them and say, I am a sovereign country. Your money for roads, please don't bring. We Ugandans will decide. Your money for health infrastructure, don't bring.